Hi, my name is Jera. I teach people how to garden and grow food. So today I want to talk about the number one question that I get asked, and that is, what is my garden zone? So if you're a beginner gardener, you need to stop and look this up right away. You have to know your garden zone. Unfortunately, this is something that was developed by the USDA, and it's a system, a gardening zone system, that is only applicable to the United States. So if you're in the United States, look this up. This will work for you. But anyways, what the USDA Hardiness garden zones tells you is what is the lowest potential temperature you might experience during any given winter. It's a very important thing to know when it comes to selecting fruit trees or just trees in general, or any kind of perennial plants that are going to be in your garden year after year after year. You need to make sure that you're not buying the wrong thing and wasting your money by buying a plant that can't survive through your winter. So anyways, the USDA hardiness garden zones do not account for other environmental factors that are also important to know for your garden, but you kind of get to know these things more with time and experience, and that will be like the amounts of rain you get, or heat, or humidity. I'm in Florida, and those three things affect everything, especially during the summer. But anyways, this is simply just what is the possible lowest temperature you might get during any random winter. I like to use a website. It's called plantmaps.com, because you put in your zip code and it will spit out an exact zone number. Other websites, when you try to look it up, will give you like a map, and you kind of have to guess and look at it and figure out maybe what your zone is. And some places you might be right on the border between one zone or another, so it's kind of unclear. But I really like this website. It's called plantmaps.com. I'll link it below in the description. But yeah, you put in your zip code and it will spit out a lot of information, your zone. It'll also give you like the average, minimum, and maximum temperatures you might experience every single month. Your first and last frost dates, which is also important to know. So go check out that website. It's a really good resource, especially if you're new to gardening. So when I go to this website and I put in my zip code, I'm in Orlando, Florida, it tells me I'm zone 9B. The difference between somebody in zone 8, for example, and zone 9, like me, is 10 degrees. So for zone 9B, this website says I could experience potentially weather with temperatures as low as 25 degrees Fahrenheit. So somebody in zone 8, the difference there is 10 degrees. They could possibly experience temperatures as low as 15 degrees Fahrenheit. So the difference between 8, 9, and 9 and 10 is 10 degrees. Now there's also the designation of A and B. So I am zone 9B. The difference between me here in zone 9B and somebody in 9A is just 5 degrees. That's it. It's just getting more minute and more detailed. So anyways, go to plantmaps.com, figure out what zone you're in. Now, this is important when you're buying plants, when you're deciding which ones you should select in your garden. This is, again, like I said, more important for like fruit trees and perennials. So when you go to your garden center or your nursery, all the labels usually will say cold hardiness, and it'll give a temperature. So you need to make sure that in your zone, it doesn't get colder than whatever that plant says it needs for its cold hardiness, or the minimum temperature that it could withstand before it dies. So just as some examples, so I'm in Florida, we grow a lot, we can grow so many different things. Mangoes and avocados, on average, they have a cold hardiness of 28 degrees Fahrenheit. So that means some varieties, if I do get a particularly cold winter and it does get down to 25 degrees Fahrenheit, are going to suffer. They will be affected in some way, potentially even just kill the entire plant. It just depends. It also depends how long of a duration that cold weather is in your area. Usually when we get cold fronts here in Florida, seriously, it only lasts for a couple hours. It's not long enough or lingering enough to like penetrate your plants, freeze the water content in your plants, and kill them, is what I find most of the time here in my zone. But those of you that are north of me, it definitely lingers for many hours and has more of an effect on your plants. So mangoes and avocados, normally you'll see 28 degrees Fahrenheit as being like a standard cold hardiness. Now, there are lots and lots of different varieties of mangoes and avocados. So if I really wanted to, I should do my research and make sure that I pick varieties that would even withstand down to 25 degrees Fahrenheit. Since I know per my cold hardiness or my USDA zone that I could get a winter that goes down to 25 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, some other plants like jaboticabas, they tend to go down to 25 degrees Fahrenheit, so a little bit colder temperatures they could withstand. Then you have some things that are more like tropicals, like soursop and rollinia, for example. I personally have two rollinia, and I have a soursop on my second garden, but so I have them all. They are pretty cold sensitive. I notice that when the temperatures drop 40 degrees or below, they start losing their leaves start dropping, or they get leaf damage, but then they seriously get affected whenever we get 32 degrees Fahrenheit or below, which is typical cold hardiness for those two types of fruiting trees. So just keep that in mind. If you are located north of me, so I'm zone 9B, where it gets even colder, those two trees, the soursops and rollinias, are probably going to die. So don't waste your money, don't buy them. Just don't. It's not going to really work out for you. And so another example is mangosteen, which can only tolerate down to like 40 degrees Fahrenheit. I can't even grow that here in my garden. I would need to get a greenhouse to put that mangosteen in there and have it survive even my winters, which are pretty mild. And just to let you guys know, as a beginner gardener, the best thing you can do to kind of start recognizing the weather and the environment of your own garden, of your own microclimate, is to get like a yearly calendar type journal and take notes. So every year I get a new one, a new journal for that particular year, and I will notate when did the first cold front arrive through my garden, when did the last one leave, and just other important things like when did I fertilize my plants so I don't forget, or when did I start seed for this crop and it was successful and produced very well for me, so I can keep repeating the good things that I find in my garden. Or I'll notate negative things like do not plant broccoli in July because it gets too hot and they die. So I just remember. So really, really useful. Keep a journal year after year. So in my garden, after recording many, many years, the coldest temperatures I've ever seen is 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So I've never personally seen it go down all the way to 25 degrees Fahrenheit, but it's a potential thing that might happen. I could get a random, really cold winter one year and hit 25 degrees Fahrenheit. But personally, through my records and everything, I've only seen it go down to 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, other things to keep in mind is knowing your own microclimate, taking those notes so you can learn your garden. I've realized that because I have this white privacy fencing wrapping around my entire yard, and then my house is right here in the middle, my garden wraps around my house. My house emits a lot of warmth and kind of keeps the temperatures in this garden area right here a couple degrees warmer than whatever is forecasted. So for example, in January of this year of 2022, we got a pretty bad cold front. It was the coldest one that I've recorded. It was 30 degrees Fahrenheit in my garden, but because of the warmth and everything, and the fencing also prevents a lot of the drafts and winds that deposit all the frost and bring in that cold air. It shields my garden from a lot of that. So I've noticed that, and my notes go along with that kind of data. So I know if it says it's going to hit 30, I'm okay. Like nothing died. I even tracked like what was affected. My rollinias, my most tropical, most sensitive things that I have that I'm growing, they definitely were hit hard. Half of the tree and up, totally dead. But it wasn't enough to kill that tree. So that is the most important thing. You want to make sure it doesn't get cold enough to kill whatever you're growing. But that is my garden. That is my microclimate. And I've learned that over the years. However, somebody that lives 10 minutes down the road from me, same zone, same city, Orlando, Florida, they lost everything. That cold came in, it's 30 degrees. At 32 degrees Fahrenheit, water freezes, so all of their plants died. If you had little transplants, they definitely died. A lot of people lost a lot of things. So it's just knowing those differences. Because I know that my garden stays a little warmer, I know I can plant tons of tomatoes, I can do like bush beans, cucumbers, and nothing's going to die for me in my garden during my winter. So very, very important to know. Start analyzing your own garden, getting to know your microclimate. Go look up your garden zone so that you make sure you're selecting the right plants that are going to survive in your garden.